Victory for Brandon Proudfoot on the dirt at Bristol Motor Speedway less than 24 hours ago. The Bootleg Racing League is ready to continue celebrating its 27th birthday in the Music City. Tonight, the top drivers in the series head to Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway for the 6th annual Stone River Shootout, presented by Stone River Outfitters, live on the Virtual Grip Network. Hello everyone, my name is Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight is Taylor Burris. Daniel Handover is our producer this evening. Taylor, tonight is a big night for the BRL. This has been a signature event for the series since 2016, and if you're a member of the BRL, you want to win this event.
You certainly do. Of course, the BRL has utilized many different racing circuits, but tonight we are at the hallowed grounds of the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, located just right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. These drivers are going to be testing their might and limits at this little short track that has provided so much great racing action throughout the decades, and we once again see it happening here in the virtual world.
Currently on your screen, you see the conditions as well as your track for tonight, Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which has seen plenty of exciting races for the Pavement Series for Bootleg Racing League competition since its initial events on the iRacing service a couple years ago. The track conditions 72 degrees Fahrenheit with 69 degrees Fahrenheit. The air temp, partly cloudy skies for tonight. That is randomly generated weather for this evening's event. But these drivers have a lot to try and show for tonight, as they'll be racing with the late models this evening. In particular, essentially the late model stock cars, Taylor, compared to in the past where this event had two usages of the super late model. This is the first time with the late model.
Yeah, the Pro Late model is one of iRacing's first oval cars that happened in the service for quite some years ago. And of course, this car here, a little bit smaller horsepower, a little bit more of a entry level into the world of late model racing compared to the more powerful super late model that we're normally used to seeing competing at this circuit across many major iRacing leagues. But here tonight, these pro late models will provide a lot of great racing action to the utmost.
And in turn, it's going to be a very busy night because on top of live qualifying, which will see drivers get 2 total laps, be able to make their way around the racetrack in the turn of 15 minutes in solo car runs. This will also feature 200 total laps for tonight's distance and 1 extra set of tires. Here's the thing though, Taylor. They are using the iRacing fixed setup, which does have a little less fuel than the maximum amount in the tank. In turn, 55 laps was the maximum drivers could go in a qualifying race to get into this event tonight. So in turn, we may see multiple pit stops this evening for fuel. Taylor.
That's very true indeed, Justin. A lot of people are going to be wanting to come down pit road to get that needed fuel, but the question is going to be when they choose to get the tires. A lot of drivers may try to wait to the very last moment to utilize fresh tires for their race tonight.
Drivers have about 30 seconds or so to go in warm-ups for tonight as we take a look at Todd Liston make his way around the racetrack. And in the history of this event, just one driver has been able to repeat to find victory lane, and that's J.R. Shepard, the king of BRL competition, who has been successful when it comes to its Grand National Series and its many other series with more than 50 combined championships. Shouldn't be surprised then, Taylor, to see him at the top of the board at the end of the practice by 6/1000 of a second over Matthew Thunhorst.
Yeah, J.R. Shepard has been a long-standing competitor of the BRL series. I remember calling him back with the SK Modifieds on Saturday night, so it's great to see him back in action once again to try to collect another victory here for the BRL as we get ready for qualifying. A couple of other drivers, Kenny Kibbe as well, sitting in 4th after practice.
But now drivers will get the chance to take qualifying for tonight's event as things get ready to go to see how we'll line up for this evening's race. This does differentiate from how things fare out in terms of the normal BRL events. For those who have watched the BRL's competitions, whether the Grand National Series or many of the other series in the past, they know that the pattern is usually there's the top 8 inversion that comes in from the previous race. Tonight brings that extra bit of flair and pressure for drivers to perform with everyone watching. Lowell Jewell will be the first driver to go onto the racetrack for a qualifying, as we are ready to see who can find themselves on the pole for this prestigious event.
Coming out of turn 3 and 4, green flag is going to be in the air for Lowell Jewell here as he comes across the start-finish line. Drivers are going to want to be trying to hug that inside lane as best as possible to keep the tightest as well as the shortest distance around the circuit as he works off the top of turn 2, working his way down into turn 3 for the final time to complete lap number 1 for him. And as he comes off of turn number 4, a great line he was able to hold as he crosses the line, lap time of a 19.813.
Keep in mind, Lowell Jewell did have the slowest time overall, unfortunately, in practice, 4/10 to the nearest car, and Ryan Seneker will need to bump up his time for comparison to 8/10 to be able to match what the top drivers were able to do in the session. Only a 19.746, a couple 100s off of what he was able to perform in practice. So that in turn will end off the first car's qualifying run, and the way this works is with the one driver finishing off, the next driver will then be released. Kurt Smith has been released for the first of his 2 qualifying laps, and Taylor, he's looking to try and overcome a lot of bad luck, in particular for the Grand National Series, where he struggled to finish races in that series.
He certainly is going to try to find that luck he needs. Currently, right now, he goes to the top of the leaderboard for qualifying right now with a 19.276. A little slower compared to his fastest time during warm-up, but as he comes out of turn number 4 for the final time, he will improve actually faster than warm-up to a 19.187. A wonderful lap time right there for Kurt Smith.
Kurt Smith was one of 2 drivers who qualified their way in a qualifying race earlier tonight, which featured 80 laps to determine some of the drivers who would be able to fill the field for tonight. Ryan Seneker is now on the track with the 19.3s in practice. He had some strong performances in Grand National competition earlier this year, also showed some good speed throughout the rest of the Saturday night slate for BRL competition throughout the summertime.
Yeah, Seneker's now coming out of turn number 4 for the first time here. As he comes across the line, he will set his first lap time of a 19.426. He will slide to the second position, about 2/10 off, but as he comes off of turn 2, he's about a 10th slower than what he showed in warm-up, so he has a little bit of work to do as he comes out of turn number 4 for the final time here in qualifying, as he will not improve, so a 19.426 will be his best lap time.
Not what he was hoping for in this session. Next coming up is Jeffrey Harden, and the California Sim Club driver had some strong performances this year. Throughout the summertime in particular, Taylor was known for being able to defend drivers for several laps at a couple different tracks. As with the inversions, he was able to start on the pole, but the main Achilles heel has been long run pace for Harden.
And tonight, he is definitely going to need to have long run pace with these races here. Of course, 200 laps is not going to be like what we normally see in the BRL, as it's going to be a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, and a lot of patience. So he has to make sure he is able to show that balance as he comes out of turn 4 for the first time. A 19.333 moves him up to P2 in qualifying. And as he comes off of turn number 2, he's going to see if he can try to improve on that. He's a little bit slower than what he had in practice earlier with a 19.257, so he needs to try to improve as he comes out of turn number 4 for the final time. He will improve to a 19.251.
Still not the quickest in qualifying, still second overall on the board. Next driver makes its way around the racetrack. That is Brandon Proudfoot, and here's the thing when it comes to him, Taylor, as he nearly loops it around on his second total lap. We'll see how this is scored. I believe this will be first overall when it comes to him. That's why you see the 109 from his out lap. He won last year's event when it comes to the Stone River Shootout with Super Late Model Southern National, but is a dirt-focused driver. In particular, he won the dirt event just last night.
Certainly shows the capability and the talents of Brandon as he comes out of turn 4, sliding that car. This is not a sprint car. This is the late model. We got to keep it on the asphalt. But as he comes across the line, not the best qualifying attempt. His best time, a 19.633. So he's going to have some work to do tonight.
Keep in mind, he did make some spot appearances in 2020 when it came to the asphalt series for BRL competition. He'll have some tough sledding as Jason Menda, who is known for some good top 5 speed throughout the early stages of 2021 on track, starts off with a blistering time of a 19.189, and Menda may be a threat to take that top step on the board so far in qualifying.
Certainly indeed, in the Javelin Ford as he comes out of turn 3 and 4 for the final time of his qualifying. Will he improve as he crosses the line? He will not, a 19.243, so Kurt Smith will hold on this time around in qualifying.
Adam Shane now quickly on track. This will be his first total lap time, as the time you see the bottom of your screen is a part of his outlap of the racetrack. Austin Belke is on deck for this qualifying session. And when it comes to qualifying around here, Taylor, we're seeing some of the drivers really struggle with the grip. How difficult is it to try and secure and hold on to that line to get the proper speed you need, especially when you need one lap that especially counts to get you up the front of the field?
With these cold tires, you got to take care of them a little bit on your warm-up lap. Some drivers try to utilize running a higher line to get that momentum and build that speed up. Adam did that a little bit and was able to improve to a 19.247, good enough for third position, but it's still a tough break for him, as well as that's not his fastest lap of the night so far.
Austin Belke made his broadcasting debut last night as part of Dirt Racing Action, the Different Path Motorsports machine, looking to showcase the speed that's made him one of the most improved drivers of 2021 and BRL competition. He won a few championships during the springtime in BRL competition before being just outside that window of the top 3 contenders for the Grand National Series this summer.
And he's already off to a good start for qualifying tonight with a 19.188. That's good enough for second place. Can he improve in that number 24 as he crosses the line? He will not. Got a little bit loose coming out of turns 3 and 4. Lost quite a bit of time, but P2 on the board for Austin Belke.
And that was 1/1000th of a second off. The other driver who qualified their way in to tonight is Ruben Altis. He is now on track for qualifying, and he was able to hit the same ballpark as our top qualifiers in practice with a 19.189. Can he match that on his first lap, wrap the bottom that time? No, it's a 19.5, not looking like the best of first laps once more. And the trend seems to be you want to be able to build up the speed a little higher up than around the yellow line.
You certainly do, indeed, and that's what was a struggle. He was not able to. He hugged that bottom and possibly hit a couple of the bumps that are towards the bottom of the racetrack as he comes out of turn number 4 for the final time. He will improve his lap time, but will remain in the 7th position with a 19.431. Good enough for P7, as now I believe the next car out on track should be the 87 of Todd Liston.
And for Todd Liston, he's looking for a lot of good luck. He is also amongst those drivers who had some struggles in the summertime, in particular in the Grand National Series. Had some good starting positions in a couple of those events, but the main thing is if you can't keep yourself out of trouble, Taylor, you're not going to score good points. And in turn, you can't score good points, you can't get yourself in the aversion spots to be up at the front of those events.
No, you certainly cannot. That's why it's so critical to try and race your heart out. In fact, as he gets real loose off of turn number 2, that's going to cause a little bit of time trouble for him. But this is his first lap, so he's going to try to see if he can improve on this as he comes off of turn number 4. First lap around will be a 19.603, good enough for P8 this time around as he comes out of turn 2. A little bit more smoother. He's still trying to get that wheel going a little bit as he comes into the entry of turn 3 and 4. As he runs a little bit higher compared to some of the other drivers in qualifying. As he comes off of turn 4 for the final time, he will improve to P number 6 to a 19.424.
Middle of the road for Todd Liston, still 0.3 off the current pole mark. But how long will that time stand? Mike Holloway is the next driver on track, and he's also someone to keep an eye on based on his track record in BRL competition. Has been a top 6 competitor at some of the racetracks. 19.5 though to start, Taylor.
Really good start on his qualifying time. That's good enough for P9, but he has ran just a little bit shy of a 19.6 or a little over a 19.16 as he comes through here for the final time off of turn 4. Will he improve? The answer will be yes, but only good enough for P6, a 19.256.
So Mike Holloway, middle of the pack as well. Next driver up is a former champion of the BRL Grand National Series, Kenny Kibbe. Kibbe, well-known streamer, also broadcasted the Dirt event here on this network last night. Looking to bump up his, to the top of the board, he does go. 19.125 on the first lap. Something should be expected, though, from Kenny Kibbe. He's performed well at the big stages for short track events across the service.
Kenny Kibbe is a well-known short-track sim racer across iRacing, and he's definitely going to put on a show here tonight for the BRL as he comes across the line for the final time. He will improve his lap time to a 19.123, so we're getting closer to where we're now inside the 19.0s. Next up is going to be the 9 of Justin Morton, the first driver to be just on that edge of a 19.0 with a 19.10. His first fast lap during qualifying or practice as he comes off of turn 4. This should be his first flying lap, and he gets a 19.265. He's got to do a little bit better improvement.
The thing is, Morton drifted like a dirt car coming through 3 and 4, and keep in mind that's where his background is. Has been a championship contender all throughout 2021 for several BRL series. Can he bump up his time towards Kenny Kibbe's range? No, it's a 19.190. Only good enough for the top 5. But here is the next driver to watch for, Taylor. Now on the clock, Matthew Thunhorst, who was the biggest championship competitor this season for J.R. Shepherd. Matthew Thunhorst nearly won the Grand National Series title before missing the final 2 races, Taylor.
He was super loose coming off of turn 2 last time by, so I don't know if that's going to count towards lap time. It does not. He hits the wall as he came off of turn 2, so he's got to try to keep a cleaner lap this time as he works down the back straightaway into turns 3 and 4. Keeps a nice tight line through the middle of the corner as he comes off of turn 4, comes across the line. He will get a 19.038. Beautiful qualifying attempt, the fastest lap of the night.
But the next driver on the clock to wrap up qualifying is the one everyone has to keep an eye on. More than 50 combined BRL championships. Has become a legend in the Grand National Series. A 2-time winner of this event. He nearly spins it around in 3 and 4, however. That may hurt Shepherd and his time. It's a 19.3 to start, Taylor. And he needs to really find that tempo. 3/10 he needs to gain for the pole.
He certainly does as he rockets down the back straightaway heading into turn 3 and 4. He has a nice line coming off corner exit of turn 4. Will he get the pole? The answer will be no. A 19.097. He will be on the outside front row in second place. Matthew Thunhorst will be your pole sitter for tonight here at Nashville.
So a very close and very tight qualifying session now wraps up. Amongst our competitors, 15 drivers able to take times, and again, J.R. Shepherd, just a few 100 shy of Matthew Thunhorst on the board. Before we make our way towards our starting grid for tonight's action, we'd like to remind you of tonight's title sponsor of the Stone River Shootout, Stone River Outfitters. Stone River Outfitters is a family-owned, full-service brick-and-mortar fly shop located in Amherst, New Hampshire, servicing the greater New England region and beyond. Committed to your complete satisfaction, our small but knowledgeable staff works hard to not only stock the finest selection of top-quality fly fishing and fly tying products the industry has to offer, but backs those goods with the highest levels of customer service, experience, insight, and most candid, most trustworthy advice available anywhere, period. Access their full inventory at StoneRiverOutfitters.com. With that, the drivers are now making their way to the starting grid for tonight's action here on Virtual Grip Network. Let's take a look at your starting grid. Matthew Thunhorst sets the pole time tonight with a 19.038, just a few 100s quicker than J.R. Shepherd. Kenny Kibbe starts in third tonight with Kurt Smith putting up a razor-thin margin. How about 4 drivers from 4th through 7th separated by 4 1,000 of a second? He starts that pattern with Austin Belke in 5th, Jason Menda in 6th, and Justin Morden's 9 car in 7th. Adam Shane is about half a tenth behind that in 8th. Jeffrey Harden starts in 9th, and Mike Holloway rounds out your top 10 tonight, Taylor.
Todd Liston will be starting in the 11th spot, followed by Ryan Sneaker in the 12th position. Ruben Altice will be starting in 13th with Brandon Proudfoot in 14th. Riding shotgun in the field in your 15-car field tonight is Lau Jewell.
Let's look top to bottom at your running order tonight from Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway on iRacing, here on the Virtual Grip Network. As these drivers get ready to roll for tonight's action, they'll have a couple pace laps to get their tires up to temperatures. In sim time, it's just past 9:30 p.m. Air conditions see 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The track temp, partly cloudy skies, very gusty winds at more than 7 to 8 miles per hour to the southeast. But on that note, Taylor, with the fuel limitations and just the one tire set in the pits, what are your keys to victory tonight if you want to win this intriguing event?
It's a long race, 200 laps. Patience is going to be required for these opening laps here. Planning as well for fuel strategy, when to come down pit road, as well as when to choose to put on those fresh Goodyear Eagle tires. That is going to be critical for these drivers here tonight. And then finally, be prepared to see beaten and banging. It's short track racing under the lights here Saturday night in Nashville. Let's get things kicked off right.
The iRacing pace car is off. The 6th edition of the Stone River Shootout is underway from Nashville. And a great start for Matthew Thunhorst, already single file. J.R. Shepard nearly knocks the wall down the back straightaway as Kenny Kibbe gets to the inside. Kurt Smith also makes his way along the yellow line, side by side for second, as Thunhorst leads the first lap of 200.
Side-by-side battle between J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe, two former champions in the series of BRL, battling it out for that second spot. As we see Matthew Thunhorst starting to pull away from your race, or second and third place drivers, 0.6 of a second ahead.
Already 7+ tenths now with that fight as Shepard able to fully get clear as Kenny Kibbe backs off. Shepard preferring that middle line for now, back down to the bottom line for corner exit. A couple drivers picked up a spot here and there to start, but everyone just getting into a rhythm, Taylor, early on, and that's to be expected. Tire saving is the name of the game when it comes to a lot of BRL action. We'll be seeing a fair bit of patience likely in turn tonight.
Saving tires, taking care of your equipment, and just running laps here in the early stages is very critical for these drivers here. You don't want to lose too much ground on your competitors, but you don't want to also use up your tires early on to where you have to throw on a new set of tires early in the race. You want to save that as late as possible before wanting to change them out. And as the field works their way through, Brandon Proudfoot moves up a spot into the 12th position. Todd Liston and Mike Holloway battle for the top 10.
See just up the roads how some of these drivers are faring. Todd Liston is all the way up the racetrack with Proudfoot after drifting the entire way around the racetrack in qualifying, unsurprisingly starting at the back. The 2020 winner of this event tries to run the bottom side, clears on by Liston, up 3 positions now in the first 6 laps. And that's one of the difficult things of starting in the back in short track racing is it takes a lot of time and patience to get the job done right. Otherwise, you burn up those tires, or in some cases, get involved in trouble, Taylor.
You certainly do. That's where that key of patience is going to be required for these drivers here as we watch the defending race winner, Brandon Proudfoot, trying to be a little careful on that loud pedal as he comes off of turn number 4, trying to catch up to Mike Holloway as they work through turns 1 and 2. Again, these laps so fast here as you're racing around this circuit within a little less than 20 seconds, 19.2 currently the fastest time outside that's last by Matthew Thunhorst, but the field's starting to stay settled in, picking off drivers one at a time for some of those working up through the field.
See Mike Holloway and how he's handling things with the pressure from behind from the 22. As Proudfoot not able to close up the gap quite yet. They also have Jeffrey Harden in front. Keep in mind this grouping you're keeping an eye on has already lost significant margins of time on the racetrack. Nearly a second and a half between 8th and 9th position.
And Jeffrey Harden in that number 44 currently holding up the rest of that field. That's going to be interesting to see what could happen if Mike Holloway and Brandon Proudfoot are able to get around him. They're going to take them 2, now 3 wide almost as they come off of turn 4. Holloway completes the pass on him along with Brandon. So move those two up inside the top 10. Jeffrey Harden will move back to 11th as they come off of turn 2.
Jim Beaver Esports Machine continuing his charge. Needs to find a way on Holloway to then try and catch up to the train that features Shane, Morton, Belke, Menda, Kurt Smith and company just up the racetrack. Mike Holloway not making this easy, and this is also to be expected because you do not want to lose a lot of positions, obviously, and for some drivers, they will defend for a decent amount of time here when it comes to this type of a race.
They certainly will, and that's the mix of where you want to push the car this early in the going as we see Proudfoot look to the inside of Mike Holloway to move him up into the 9th position. You will see drivers giving positions away to let them go ahead and waste their equipment for a fact, as we see Brandon Proudfoot getting ahead of Holloway. Holloway could have let him go just to continue to save his equipment early on in the going. Now, if this was about 14 laps to go, that would be a different story. But as we're on board with Brandon Proudfoot in that 22 Jim Beaver Esports Chevrolet, he is going to try to see if he can pull a little bit of a gap and continue on his way to catch up to Adam Scone in that 8th spot.
It's a reference to the 65 of Shane in that Mark Taylor, indeed. Yes, that he needs to close up that gap too. Keep in mind, though, you see how Proudfoot's pulling off in a way that group in front has been getting a little argy-barginess because we've seen a little bit of a glance towards their direction earlier on. Some of the drivers in that pack up the road do have damage. Take, for example, the 24. Austin Belke has a car-shaped dent in the back bumper that has crumpled up that fender towards the rear end.
I'm wondering who is the one who started that fight. It looks like while the reporters look away, the kids will play a little bit. They'll get in a little roughhousing as we think we might see one driver who might also be the one who might mix up with that damage or match it, and that's that number 9 of Justin Morton. I see a little bit of damage to the nose of that Chevrolet as he is trying to keep pace with at Austin Belke off of turn 4 and down back into turn 1.
Funny how those things seem to happen, right? You get one car with some damage at one end, you get the other car that pops up, and then you get that light bulb coming into play. As Morton, surprising to see him struggle this early on because he was a top 3 car in Grand National Series competition, but for some, it's not an easy transition to go from the ARC Menards car, Taylor, to the late model. It takes very different driving styles from stock car to late model.
It certainly is, and that's one of the things that's so great about the stepping stone when it comes to short track racing, is that these cars are very interesting and a great learning standpoint for drivers to utilize to learn more about setting up, building the proper driving lines as well for you during the race, as well as to help you learn how to conserve equipment, conserve tires during some of these longer races, because a lot of major pro late model races happen around the world or around the country that are 200 plus laps. So it's very important for these drivers to learn and utilize that if they want to continue to progress in the world of motorsports.
And that has been hammered in on the virtual side for so much, especially over the past year and a half, where if you don't know how to be able to adapt, it is a struggle to be able to move up that said ladder. Looking at Jason Mendes holding up if on back, he is in P5, should say, in this battle. But there's the difference of the lines coming in. Shane prefers the bottom up against the old line. The 3 cars in front prefer the middle, and that's one of the main characteristics of Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. It is a multi-groove racetrack where you can get multiple different lines to try and work.
It certainly does, and that's one of the great things about this circuit, and where also drivers would prefer. We'll see drivers stick to that bottom right there against that yellow line. We'll see drivers go up half a car lane, maybe even a full car lane up through the middle of the circuit. We even may see a couple of drivers ride the wall later in the going, depending on how the tires are for these drivers. So it just all depends on how that car is set up for them, as well as how much input they put into these cars.
That's the key thing there, too. If you put too much input into your gas, you're going around like a bottle top. If you put too little effort into the gas, into the corners, you'll likely be swamped by 3-4 cars wanting to make a pass. Keep in mind, too, at Nashville, it can also be difficult to pass once the tires grip up and worn in, I should say.
Certainly, indeed. We'll have to see what happens here later in the going when these tires start to give a little bit more leeway and a little more struggle for these drivers when the tires are continuing on here as they work through turns 3 and 4. Coming out of turn 4, that might be the opening that Belke needs to get around Menda.
Side by side, we'll see how things fare out for the battle for 5th as Morton watches as Belke in his up to car and up to par Jeff Gordon throwback scheme, able to ride the bottom. Menda drifts up the track. Belke able to take away the spot of the stripe, just needs to clear on by Foley. Complete the move as Morton is taking advantage to get inside as well. Belke is clear, but Morton not able to take advantage. He got loose coming off of turn 2.
Tough break for Morton. He's going to have to try to set up another run here, build that momentum he needs to try to catch up to Menda and get around him. Looking at timing and scoring right now, currently the fastest cars on the racetrack is your top 3, but in this group of cars right here, Austin Belke setting the pace now and trying to see if he can catch up to the 4th place car of Kurt Smith sitting in that 4th position.
Now, Kurt Smith built up a buffer of 1 second with all that fighting that came to be. Kurt Smith having one of the best races he's had all year in BRL competition, keeping the car clean. Keep in mind, you see with the interval, things continue to remain pretty close amongst your top 3. J.R. Shepard stays within 0.3 of a second to Matthew Thunhorst. Kenny Kibbe, 0.6 behind Shepard. All of them, you mentioned, are the fastest cars on the racetrack by a full 1/10 of a second. The only other car in the entire field matching their pace is Proudfoot, who is more than 7 seconds back.
Certainly is, so he has quite a bit of work to do, along with Adam Shane as well, sitting at 8th spot. So these drivers are going to have to try to work their way up through the field, be patient, but not wanting to waste their tires here and continue on to press forward. A good opening right now for Justin Morton. He takes a peek to the inside of Jason Menda, can't quite make it stick, has to follow back in line.
That battle you're referring to is in that grouping 5th on back. We still keep an eye on the race leaders, meanwhile, on screen as Shepard tries to size things up. And here's one of the difficult things for those who watched along with the Grand National Series in particular had seen. If J.R. Shepard was in the lead, it took a lot of effort for Thunhorst to make the pass. Vice versa, if Thunhorst was in front of Shepard. They have 2 different types of approaches when they're the race leader. Shepard's approach he's described prefers to save his tires, force the driver behind to make the pass. When it comes to Thunhorst, he likes to try and force the driver behind to push along with him. So that's intriguing how that plays out, Taylor, with those different mindsets coming to be amongst these 2.
It certainly is. I mean, for me personally, I'm someone who likes to wait and see if the driver ahead of me makes that mistake and then capitalize, in a sense, punish them for making that mistake by taking that position from them. Some other drivers, though, rather have a little help and tag team partner the driver ahead of them so they can work their way together. But it's just all a matter of preference as well as strategy that the driver is able to pull off, and it works a lot of great ways, whether it be the first or the latter.
Keep in mind, J.R. Shepard all over the back bumper of Thunhorst now. They pulled away by a couple more car lengths to Kenny Kibbe. It's looking like Shepard is looking a little more comfortable right now compared to Thunhorst. At the very least, Thunhorst being a little bit more patient off the throttle right now with this car.
Certainly is, which is a great opportunity for him to conserve his tires compared to J.R. Shepard, who's just staying right in the tire tracks, maybe pushing just a little bit, not too much though, as they are approaching the lap car of the 52 of Lowell Jewell, who is going to be the first car 1 lap down as they come off of turn number 4. That driver is going to give them plenty of way to continue racing here, but the battle for the race lead is looking good, and great to see these 2 battling.
Taking a look at a replay, meanwhile, this is Adam Shane. They're battling along with Justin Morton and Jason Menda in this particular group. And things have been getting intriguing within these groupings of cars, especially since Proudfoot has now been able to close up 1 second to these respective competitors. Only following on with live action, they have been able to pull away a decent amount. You mentioned the traffic. Todd Liston also within range to be lapped soon. Ryan Seneca close behind as well.
Certainly is indeed. Seneca doing a great job right now as they work their way through the field. And it looks like Kenny Kibbe will now dive to the inside of Lowell Jewell and press on. So your top three is just right there within less than a second as they will continue to battle. 40 laps on the board. Now make it 41 as they come off turn 4.
Liston, you see running on his own, 14.7 seconds back of this battle. Shepard still all over the back bumper of Matthew Thunhorst. We'll have to see how things fare out with these two, especially since, and here's something to think about that drivers may not have been preparing for as much for tonight. Green flag pit stops at Nashville Fairgrounds. That's going to be pretty tricky with this pit wall.
It certainly is. I've seen a couple of drivers not being able to make it into the pit road because of that pit wall. So we'll have to see if these drivers practiced any time before tonight's event, and all as well, make sure nobody comes up behind them and runs them over while they're trying to enter the pit road.
And the reason we mentioned the need for green flag stops, this event uses the iRacing default setups. The iRacing default, Taylor, 8 gallons of fuel. Obviously, not going to get you to the checkered flag. So, it was estimated by drivers they could reach the end of the event with 3 fuel stops total. So that's going to bring the extra bit of strategy to these drivers on how they play things out, and as well as we talked about pre-race, when they elect to use the tire set available in the pits.
It certainly is indeed, and that's going to be very interesting to see what they accomplish with these fuel strategies as well as the tire strategies. We always consider the halfway point to be a good way, but as you pointed out, there you have 3 stops. So if they take care of their tires this first stint as well as the second stint, maybe we could see a driver utilize tires late in the going, while maybe some other drivers have already considered, you know what, I've already need to change tires now. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Approaching that window within 10 laps of that estimated mark drivers could reach in the qualifying race just hours before tonight's main event. For those tuning in, Matthew Thunhorst, J.R. Shepard, Kenny Kibbe have broken away for the rest of the pack by more than 3 seconds over Kurt Smith, Austin Belke, and Justin Morton. There's an error grouping 7 through 9, Jason Menda, Adam Shane, and Proudfoot. Mike Holloway on his own, Ruben Altis and Jeffrey Harden are also battling, you see on screen, for the 11th position. The rest of the cars on the lead lap, Liston, and Seneca are just a few laps away from that moment. Lowell Jewell, the only driver, 1 lap down in this event. And say you're in a grouping such as this one, what's kind of going through your mind knowing that, say you get a caution flag and you're pinned a lap down, that could cause a lot of wrenches into strategy in turn 4 tonight and how you finish this event?
It certainly can, Justin, but that's where you need to make sure you try to stay on the lead lap. But if you do end up a lap down, try some different strategy calls. You may have to stay out and try to get a wave around or a lucky dog possibly. That is going to be critical to see if drivers can do that and see if they can be able to stay on the lead lap leading up to another caution possibly that may happen for them. But we are approaching the first round of pit stops on lap 51 as they work their way down through the field right now. So we should be seeing pit stop cycles beginning here in the next 4 to 5 laps.
Adam Shane now boxed in, meanwhile, behind Jason Menda. This is the grouping for 7th. And Proudfoot just continuing to remain patient here, knowing drivers are making mistakes. Shane clips the apron there. Proudfoot go for the move. No. Brandon Proudfoot, I've noticed he's been really waiting to pick his spots in groupings like this. And this is to be expected where you're at a track where it can take you up to 10 laps to plan how you want to make the move.
You certainly do need to set the plans, and you need to set them as early as possible because this track is just so fast here around the Nashville Fairgrounds that you do not have time to make very split-second decisions. It all takes on momentum and how you want to play it out. You need to actually be making preparations when you find out where you're starting for the race of how you want to do this, as these drivers here are going to go 2 wide for position as Brandon Proudfoot is trying to get around Jason Menda for that 8th position.
Shane is clear, and Menda's been struggling on that top line, particularly in 3 and 4. See if Proudfoot's able to take advantage. You see just how much ground you lose when you're fighting side by side. That helped Matthew Thunhorst pull away that big gap early. Lowell Jewell just came into the pit lane. You see at the bottom of your screen now towards the top as he is the first driver to come in for service, while Proudfoot cannot clear on by Menda. Menda not making it easy, continuing to pinch him on down on corner exit as Shane waves goodbye.
Not something that Brandon Proudfoot needs to have Jason Menta holding him up. That's going to cause them to use up their tires even more, and it's going to even allow drivers such as Mike Holloway to close in on that battle for the 8th spot as they work their way off of turn number 2 down the back straightaway. You're on board, of course, with Adam Shane, who is still trying to hold on. The Carolina Club driver, a strong performance for him tonight, running inside the top 10.
And he's seen with the times moments ago, by the way. He is reeling in Justin Morton bit by bit. Morton back at that train that has developed for 4th position. Drivers continuing to push their fuel strategies on forward. They have now quickly approached towards lap 60 as Austin Belkey has been able to reel in Kurt Smith, but can't pass Kurt Smith. Justin Morton is in the same boat. They're all running 19.7s within this pack, with Belkey trying to get to his outside. Oh wow, a couple drivers have come to pit road, including Shepard.
Certainly indeed. The biggest one, of course, is J.R. Shepard. He is going to come down pit road to get the needed fuel service, along with the 65 of Adam Shane. So 2 of our top 10 runners, as I think J.R. missed his pit box. J.R. Shepard missed his pit box. That's going to be detrimental to his time, as he is now trying to get himself fuel and continue on the way. Jacks are not going up, so fuel only for the 98 of J.R. Shepard.
Shepard overran his stall by a couple feet, so that will indeed cost him some time, and this is a significantly lengthy process to fill up the tanks. Already Thunhorse lapping Shepard. As Matthew Thunhorse continues to push on further ahead, Shepard has completed his service. Justin Morton, Ryan Seneker, Brandon Proudfoot, Austin Belkey amongst those coming down this time. Thunhorst barely misses the pit interior as he comes in for service as well, as Liston and Kurt Smith. Jason Menda this time by as well. So just about all the race leaders, and those fuel numbers now stretched to 60, 120, 180 if you break it down from this point forward or so in this event, as Thunhorst and company now make their stops.
Certainly is going to be interesting to see now what these drivers decide to do. Kenny Kibbe now comes down pit road. That leaves 3 drivers out on the racetrack. Mike Holloway, Jeffrey Harden, and Ruben Altice, the only drivers who have yet decided to come down pit road, as Holloway is going to try to stretch it out for as long as possible, try to put as many drivers that he can 1 lap down here, which is a good strategy call to do that, so because these pit stops are so long. But he will also decide to come down pit road along with Jeffrey Harden. So that means everyone has completed their first set of pit stops.
Now who will cycle in front of whom? Here's the interesting thing to note, though. Kenny Kibbe had the quickest stop out of anybody by far, only an 11.7 second stop. And that intrigues me, Taylor, because that has given him the lead and then some. One of the fans watching along had mentioned, always be aware of the 14 of Kibbe. Guess what? He leads by 7 seconds now with the result of strategy.
He certainly is, and he's not done yet, as Matthew Thunhorse has now been able to get back onto the lead lap, as well as J.R. Shepard. So the field is now starting to cycle their way through, but this is the biggest lead of the night that we have seen, and he is now in heavy lap traffic. Has to get around the 65 of Adam Shane, along with Kurt Smith, and the 22 as well of Brandon Proudfoot. Not a good pit stop, 1 minute pit stop. Not the thing you need to have happen here this early in the going. I'm hoping he did not take tires, because that would be detrimental to him.
That'd be intriguing indeed in that mark, especially since there is only the 1 total tire set available for these drivers to utilize tonight. And if you took that tire set too early, you're going to be really slipping and sliding and struggling by the final third of this race. Shane, 7th position, just 7 cars now. We're on the lead lap after pit stops. We'll have to see how things break down amongst some of these drivers. Hearing technical issues now for Lil Jewel as well, with issues with his throttle. Unfortunate for Jewel, that means the first driver is currently off the circuit. 14 still circulating as we approach lap 70.
Yeah, it's one of the things that here on the iRacing service we have to overcome and deal with. We can have trouble with our throttle input and our brake input, which is very important in the world of sim racing. So hopefully Lowell can maybe try to get that fixed and rejoin the racetrack.
Very intriguing to see how things play out here. By the way, Shepard and Morton came out very close to winner as a result of that mistake you see on screen. So Morton back in the thick of things. That mistaken turn became 6 seconds nearly on the racetrack, Taylor, for Shepard to Thunhorst.
That is going to be incredible, and it's amazing to see that that lead is continuing to still grow, actually. It's now about to be about 7.2 seconds and growing as they continue to do battle here, as Kenny Kibbe's just got to negotiate the lap traffic spot on, and he can maintain this lead leading up to the next round of pit stops.
That's going to be the very important thing, is how Kibbe, in turn, a lot of these errors take advantage of the traffic. Right on board, this is the total downforce racing machine of Justin Morton. As Morton, you can see some of the inputs and hear some of those inputs on how he's getting around this racetrack. Talk us through, Taylor, what you're seeing here is right now just getting to the edge of that rev limiter on the entry of the corners.
Yeah, as we come off of turn 4, we're going to start a lap here, running across the start-finish line. You see he's going to try to take a little bit of a higher entry line. That's the preferred groove in turns 1 and 2. Then dive in the corner off corner exit, get right up against the wall down the back straightaway before having to set up your next set of braking. A little bit of a higher groove, and then diving it down to the bottom of the racetrack off corner exit. That's one of the things about this track. With the banking is so unique here at the Nashville Fairgrounds, Justin. Diamonding the corners is actually a little bit the faster route to go around this circuit here in race conditions, as we still are on board with Morton trying to see if he can find his way around J.R. Shepard.
Shepard, remember, did pick up the pace towards the end of his run. Morton, though, is a little bit quicker compared to Shepard at this point of the race. Just seems to be the differentials in pace coming into play for some of these drivers. Morton, though, just cannot seem to get that run he needs to get side by side. And this is, again, that cat and mouse of you need to find the opportunity to pounce.
You most certainly do, and you have to make sure you set that plan up as quickly as possible now, as he's losing a lot of time to the next driver ahead of him, Matthew Thunhorst, who is sitting about 5.3 seconds ahead of J.R. Shepard and Justin Morton as they come off of turn number 2. And as we see here, there's Adam Shane in the 65 trying to see if he can find his way around the 6 of Kurt Smith. As they ruck it off of turn 2, you're on board with Shane as they head down the back straightaway, diving it down to the bottom of the racetrack in turn 3. One of the only drivers really right now who's been running right against the bottom through the corners instead of diming it like what we saw Kurt Smith do last time by.
You can see just how he's charging them too, Taylor. The thing is, he keeps clipping the apron in turn 2 with that line, and that's what's hurting him the most, is the personal mistakes of trying to stay so close to the yellow line, he's actually going over it.
He certainly is, and it's a great drive indeed, and that's what's causing him to lose that time on Kurt Smith, so he needs to try to find a way to not clip it as much off corner exit, and he'd be able to pick up maybe a chance to catch up.
Losing a little ground. In front of them, Proudfoot just has been lapped. One of the air drivers who picked up a fair bit of track position after the pit stops was Ribbon Altsies. Remember, he was battling around 12th, 13th position before he came down for the first time tonight. However, was able to pick up several positions, taking advantage of some of these slower pit entries, and for those who missed their pit boxes. So already up to 9th. However, the driver he was battling with, Jeffrey Harden, also took a quicker pit stop in turn to pull away from him.
Indeed, he actually has the second fastest pit stop. The only other driver to beat him as far as pit road box is Kenny Kibbe with the 11-12. Jeffrey Harden a 17.7 second pit stop. So it's going to be more of a battle on pit road of how long you're in that box will determine how far up the leaderboard you will go in the late stages of this race here, as we have completed 82 of the 200 laps here. So a lot is going well. No cautions yet, so we're doing quite well here for the BRL at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
Absolutely. And it's great to see when these green flag runs happen in BRL competition. The turn test the full abilities of the drivers amongst the field. Looking at Jason Menda making his round around the racetrack. He lost 6 positions, Taylor, in the pit stop sequence. He's running 19.8. And the main thing for him is he took a 29-second pit stop during that stop cycle. And in turn, it's really hurt his positioning on the racetrack after being in a good spot earlier. The reason, he overran his pit stall by a full box.
Yeah, it's something you cannot be doing here right now, and especially at a short track event such as here at the Nashville Fairgrounds. You have to hit your mark spot on, and it will cost you dearly, as it saw with J.R. Shepard, and he had a lot of work to do. He's currently 6.2 back from Matthew Thunhorse, and still another 6 seconds further back from your race leader, Kenny Kibbe.
Ryan Seneca also struggling a little bit right now. He has already lost 2 laps in this race. Also had a lengthy pit stop sequence. Also, you may notice on the pylon, Brandon Proudfoot deeper down on said pylon. After his respective pit stop service, he ended up having a speeding penalty that cost him a lengthy amount of time. It was a 1 minute and 3 second stop for Proudfoot. That's why he is right now behind Seneca on track, 3 laps down.
Something that the defending race winner, is going to have to claw his way back up to the field and need to do some different strategies in order to see what he can do. Maybe go a little longer on this stint to try to at least get one of those lap back before he has to make his pit stop. But it's going to be a tall order for that number 22 Jim Beaver Esports Chevrolet.
See a little bit of shuffling meanwhile. That is J.R. Shepard and Justin Morden on your pylon, going side by side on the racetrack for third position. Morden underneath the 98 machine, the Different Path Motorsports car, still able to get the launch off the corner. Shepard, though, not making it easy for Justin Morden as he squeezes him down. Shepard able to defend successfully this time.
Certainly indeed, as we watch on, Morton trying to find a way to get around the 50-time champion J.R. Shepard, trying to hold on as he comes through turns 1 and 2. Great driving line that he's trying to hold off, but still has a lot of work to do in the closing stages. And as those two keep battling, they're slowly but surely bringing in Austin Belke in that 24. He's made up some significant time.
See a slight technical issue there, too, for J.R. Shepard. That is also going to impact how Justin Morden approaches this. Keep in mind, some drivers do not like to run behind those with that type of an issue in this type of sequence. I mentioned Belke, by the way, needs to gain 2.2 seconds or so to get up to this fight, keep in mind. So, in our words, Austin Belke needs these drivers to fight for a lengthy amount of time to close up fully.
Certainly does indeed. Right now, he's about a 10th off of J.R. Shepard last time by, so it's going to be a tall order for him right now. Currently, though, fastest driver on the racetrack has to go to the 11 of Ruben Altice. Right now, it's 19.651, so definitely working his way up through the field, trying to catch up to Jeffrey Hardin in that 44 as they continue on. As you see, Adam Shane from the Carolinas region still battling with Kurt Smith in the 6.
Keep in mind, Jeffrey Hardin is already amongst these cars as well after reeling them in by a 10th or 2 per lap. That's how big of a hill Ruben Altice needs to climb to overtake the 44. On board with the California Sim Club driver in Jeffrey Hardin. He's amongst those who is now migrated their way to the bottom of the racetrack, has the popcorn seat. Between the 6 and the 65, Kurt Smith just a half a lane up compared to Shane, and now smacks the wall. Shane runs into him. We continue to stay green, however, as all those drivers lose significant amounts of time from having to slam on the brakes.
Going to be interesting to see here what happens as we watch on board from Jeffrey Hardin as he goes a little bit of a higher line, dives into the bottom of the racetrack, trying to see if he can capitalize on Shane along with the 6 of Kurt Smith as they work through turns 1 and 2. Off of turn 2, he's able to gain a little ground. He's going to take a peek, show his nose to the inside, goes back in line as they enter turn 3.
And Hardin has the cleanest car amongst these 3 now in this group. Keep in mind as well, there is a fast repair available in the pit lane. However, we are still a little ways out from the estimated second pit stop window of the race tonight. Shane opens up the bottom door for Hardin. Hardin doesn't take it, however, as Shane now starting to really drift. He's got quarter panel damage, front nose damage all across that car. Kurt Smith significant right front fender damage after their incident just a few laps ago, and all of this has allowed Altis to catch right back up.
Certainly is, as we just crossed over into the halfway point here of tonight's race, as we watch the battle between the 6 of Kurt Smith and Adam Shane in the 65 to Jeffrey Harden has also closed in the gap, and there's that 11 car of Ruben Altis. He's in the mix, so we have a 4-car battle for that 6th position as they rocket it off of turn number 2 here down the back straightaway. Altis looks to the inside of Shane as they continue.
That's after Harden made the move in 1 and 2. Shane pushes up the racetrack as Altis now able to take advantage. Harden now looks to pass by the wounded machine of Kurt Smith, and here is part of the reason why it's so important, Taylor. This would be for the lucky dog. With how things are faring out, as Harden takes the lucky dog spot away.
It certainly is going to be critical indeed if a caution were to come out here, as Jeffrey Harden will maintain that position now inside the top 6 as they work their way out of turn number 2. But Kurt Smith still going to put the pressure on. Here comes Ruben Altis to the inside of the 6. Side-by-side battle for position as they come out of turn number 4. Move Ruben Altis up to the P7 spot.
It's not over yet, though. Kurt Smith still fighting hard. The Pizza King machine. Pizza King loses his crown for that spot. So drop back 1 spot, Ruben Altis, along with Adam Shane underneath Kurt Smith, to bump Kurt Smith in turn, should say, into 9th position.
Makes me want to have pizza right about now, Justin, as we watch here on board with the Carolinas driver of Adam Shane in the 65 as he's trying to catch up to Ruben Altis as they work down the back straightaway, heading back into turn 3 and 4. But Kurt Smith, with severe damage to that number 6 Pizza King, is going to be struggling until his next set of pit stops.
This is all while some of the race leaders were catching up to him. Kenny Kibbe, meanwhile, has seen his lead shrink to under 6 seconds. But after that much quicker pit stop, he is still blistering his way around the racetrack when in clean space in the 19.7s. Tough part is, one horse when he's in clean space has been turning 0.5 of a second quicker. So in our words, we'll have to see how this strategy now plays out for Kibbe after picking up all this time as a result of pit stop delta.
Certainly indeed. Of course, the next time we will see Kenny Kibbe down on pit road will be around lap 120-ish for the most part, so he's still got, I'd say, another 10 to 15 laps to go before he comes down pit road and continues on his way. Now, the question will be, during this pit stop cycle, Justin, who will take tires and who will maintain and not take tires this time around? As we watch, here comes Brandon Proudfoot to try to see if he can get around Ryan Seneker in that 13th position. There's Jason Menda up ahead of them, not too far either, but side-by-side battle for the 13th spot as they come out of turn 4.
And that is now for position on the racetrack. Seneker, we knocked the wall down a couple laps ago. Reason why? With that amount of length up the racetrack for Seneker. He's been the cork in the bottle, though, for a couple cars in turn, holding up Harden and Altis as Seneker lifts hard up the gas to let by several cars. So Seneker now is last on track. Matthew Thunhorst also drive on by the 19 as we follow along with Proudfoot, who looks to regain some of his ground.
He's currently the first car 3 laps down in the field. He has to make up another lap to try to catch up to the 45 of Jason Menda and the 87 of Todd Liston for 12th and 11th position. And then he has to try to make up another lap to catch into at least into the top 10. So it's going to be a tall order for the defending race winner from last year. As you see, the 44 of Jeffrey Harden is that first car on the lead lap. Ruben Altis trying to see if he can be that first car on the 1 lap down here as they work their way down into turns 1 and 2.
Here's the tough part for the current situation for Taylor, though, too. If you're Harden, you need a caution within the next few laps or so, because we mentioned the next window is estimated to be coming up. But Austin Belke is the next car in line to lose a lap. And if indeed Belke gets lapped before or after the pit stop sequence, it'll be the 24 who moves to the lucky dog spot. And then it's J.R. Shepard, who is the next car behind that as well, followed by Morton. It's just been the type of pace, though, that has been set by our top competitors tonight. that has made it so difficult to try and maintain that lead lap for some.
It certainly has, and Belke is trying everything that he can to stay on the lead lap. There you see Kenny Kibbing. If you look just ahead, there you see Belke. And then if you go another 1.3 seconds ahead of Belke, there's J.R. Shepard. So it is going to be interesting to see if Kenny Kibbing can continue to lap some of these competitors here in this stint during the green flag pit stops that we're about to see here, anywhere between the next 4 to 7 laps.
The most intriguing thing to me still, though, Taylor, and all that is, where do you save 10 seconds? I think is the question of a lot of these drivers' minds, because everyone else, except for Harden, had a sub-20-second time.
That's going to be the tough one indeed, of trying to determine how much fuel and if you decide to take tires or not. So some drivers may go ahead and bite the bullet to take their long pit stop now, so that way they are in better condition late in the going. As we watch on for the passive position, that's the 8 of Matthew Thunhorst trying to work through lap traffic as he is trying to make up ground. He's currently 5.5 seconds back, but that's going to be the critical part, is whether or not you want to go ahead and complete this pit stop now, or risk saving it for the end. Even though you may have better tires than everyone else towards the end of the race, you risk the factor of being multiple laps down to where you cannot make it up.
It's a good conundrum to think about. And you can definitely tell in turn that Kibbe planned things out with how this is stretching out to, if that becomes the fruition, take a short stop now, long stop later, and in turn, we may see if that math comes into fruition, the shorter stop for a lot of these drivers if they did it right. Harden, meanwhile, still runs on his own in 6th position. We see he's been able to break away more than a second from Ruben Altis. He is starting to continue to pull off and away. He's just up the road, though, from Thunhorst, the 2nd place car on track.
One thing to keep in mind for drivers such as Kenny Kibbe, though, Justin, with how much of a gap he's had, and depending on how much of a gap he has later during his next run of pit stops, he could decide not to take tires for this entire race, just of how well he's been conserving and how much of a gap he has. He's probably been taking care of his equipment as we take a look at this replay here between the 22 of Brandon Proudfoot along with the 19 of Ryan Seneker as they will battle their way through turns 3 and 4. This is the battle for position, of course, and there he goes up the racetrack, Seneker. And as we go back live, you now see the 44 of Jeffrey Hart in that first car, who is 1 lap down.
And that was, keep in mind with what we've seen in the replay, at the time we seen it, Ryan was calmly, Seneca letting by the lead lap cars and 1 lap down cars, knowing what the race situation is. And in turn, as a driver, you do not want to be the one who costs a lead lap car a race.
No, you certainly do not. That's actually quite frowned upon if you cost a lead lap car a race or even a battle for position. So it's a lot of showing respect out on the racetrack as we see the 6 of Kurt Smith, the Indiana Club driver, trying to just maintain his position before the next round of pit stops, try to get that fast repair needed that he so desperately needs to get it fixed and get back on the racetrack as he scrapes the wall once again, and that will allow I believe that's the 45 of Jason Menda to try to find a way to get around him. That's not battle for position. Of course, Menda is a lap behind the 6 of Kurt Smith.
But it's still one where if you are on that higher up lap, you don't want to in turn fall behind the driver on the lesser lap, but in turn you don't want to hold up that driver, especially if you have a wounded race car in this case. Kenny Kibbe has come on down for his scheduled stop, so Kibbe's window has opened up. One thing to know, drivers have pushed a little bit farther along compared to some of their initial runs. We'll have to see how that factors in on the strategy, because it's going to be intriguing how this breaks down now based on these math numbers, with Kibbe coming in 64 and 64 now.
Certainly is, and a beautiful pit stop, a 12.7 pit stop for Kenny Kibbe as he will rejoin the racetrack. Did not take tires at all this time around as he will fall back to the 8th spot, 1 lap down. Now the question is going to be, when will we see the rest of our front runners? Matthew Thunhorst now is the next car to keep an eye on of when he will come down pit road.
And the one thing that made me think about that was talking about the lone stop strategy, right? In the case of some of the other drivers, for them to be safe on fuel, they need to go 6 more laps, right, Taylor? So that opens up the window for when the drivers can come out. If this is breaking down how it's looking for some of these competitors right now, it might be where Kibbe might have to take an extra stop unless he, there with the slightly longer stop, put in just enough to make it 70 laps. Otherwise, this race can be blown wide open.
It certainly can be right now as the rest of the top 10 start to make their way down pit road. Adam Shane, Todd Liston, or actually Adam Shane just finishing up his pit stop. The 11 of Ruben Altis is also coming down pit road as we see a pass of position for third. Austin Belke dives to the inside of J.R. Shepard, move him up to P3 as he will work his way off of turn 2 down the back straightaway. A couple of other cars have yet decided to pit. The question is now going to be, when will we see the 8 and the 9, the Forge Racing Chevrolets of Thunhorse and Morton come down pit road, and what their strategy will be?
I'm curious of that as well. Keep in mind, these are 2 different Path Motorsports machines who have been working together now. Once this pack, Altis returns to the racetrack just behind them. So right now, down into the final third or so of this event, Stone River Shootout. For those tuning in, Thunhorse is currently in the race lead, and the strategy games are now coming up plenty at the moment. Right now, it's Matthew Thunhorse in the lead, but he is trying to stretch his run to be able to put himself in the window where he can make it on 2 stops. However, Kibbe's on a borderline 3-stop scenario, depending on how much fuel was put in for that second stop he took just moments ago. It is a 1-lap loss when you come down to the pit lane. So the risk right now is, for Kenny Kibbe's strategy to work at the very least, he needs this to go green.
He certainly does. He cannot afford a caution whatsoever. He is the first car 1 lap down, so that is somewhat of a benefit if a caution were to come out. However, that opens up the door widely for those on the lead lap to where they could take tires and be ready to battle it out for those final closing laps here as we're coming just shy of 60 laps to go. It's going to be 63 or 62 laps next time by for your race leaders as they work their way down the back straightaway, trying to see if they can put the 44 of Jeffrey Harden 1 lap down, which will be a little bit of a trouble for Kenny Kibbe because then he has to then hunt down that 44 to be the first car 1 lap down, as we're waiting to see when our top 4 will come down pit road.
And there is the move that now puts Kenny Kibbe in a tough situation if there was to be trouble. Jeffrey Harden now the first one lap down. That brings 4 cars to the lead lap. Approaching 60 laps to go in this event as Thunhorse starts to bobble around. Got a little loose as Proudfoot pokes his way underneath the 44 as well. Harden nopes out of that one and stays out of the trouble as Proudfoot tries to close up. He took service 9 laps ago and now brings pressure to the race leader currently.
He certainly is trying to put the pressure on indeed to get himself 1 of his laps back, but he's 5 laps down, so now about to be 4 laps down as we see Thunhorse let him on by. No need to be in any trouble whatsoever for their race leader. He has an 8.9 second lead over his teammate Justin Morton. So just trying to log laps and then be ready to come down pit road when it's time.
Keep in mind, Proudfoot did take tires, Taylor, during that pit stop sequence. So a couple drivers have now elected to start using their tire sets on top of filling their fuel tanks up to get to the end of the race. Ruben Altis did not take tires during that sequence, had an 11.7 second stop. Adam Shane, who was battling with them, also did not take tires, had a 10.9 second stop. And that's also an intriguing layer of this race too, where drivers are saying, I'm not going to take my set of tires, I'd rather keep the track position.
Certainly is the case right now as we watch on board with Adam Shane as he tries to find a way to get around Ruben Altis for that 9th position as they come off of turn 4 down the front straightaway here. As they are currently 2 laps down from your race leader here, and still trying to determine what will happen to our top 4 of when they will come down pit road. In fact, Kurt Smith, Mike Holloway, and Todd Liston, they've also yet to come down pit road. So it's now a matter of who will blink first here.
Trouble back straight away. Jeffrey Harden has nosed his car into the wall. Caution is out for the first time tonight. And boy, oh boy, does this shake up the running order. Kenny Kibbe is now pinned a lap down Taylor.
This changes everything as Jeffrey Harden has severe damage to the nose of that number 44 California Club Chevrolet, as he will come down and try to get that fast repair needed. But now is the time for drivers such as Thunhorse, Morton, and Belkey and Shepard to get fresh Goodyear or Eagles on those tires and continue on to battle here and keep Kenny Kibbe one lap down unless there is a wave around system, which there looks like to possibly be, as he will get back on the lead lap. But now the question is going to be, should Kenny Kibbe now come down pit road? As Thunhorse, he does make his pit box. I thought he might have missed it, and he will go up on the jacks.
So the race leaders, Thunhorse, Morton, Belkey, and Shepard, who stayed out on the racetrack and extended their runs, electing to take their tire sets now. Morton not taking his fast repair in this sequence, neither does Belkey. Shepard also holding on to his fast repair. Kenny Kibbe, the lucky dog, under this caution flag situation. So 5 cars in the lead lap. Kurt Smith, Mike Holloway, Todd Liston, all pinned 1 lap down. Thought of this caution flag as there goes Kibbe, and his strategy has now gone awry. Here is why.
First time we've seen a bad bobble by the looks of it of Jeffrey Harden as he bobbles off of turn 2 and then just sends it into the inside wall. That is the racing groove, so the caution will come out. Unfortunately, as we get another look at that replay, right about corner exit, I think he hits a bad bump and loops it around. Unfortunate here tonight, as we are just shy of 50 laps to go here.
So now the lights are out still. On top of the iRacing pace car, Matthew Thunhorst. Once those now pacing around here in the race lead. Justin Morton came out in second from the pit lane. Belkey came out in third. J.R. Shepard is leading the conga line here, so something's amiss here for Shepard. And is it what I think it may be here for Shepard's situation? Yes, because of how far back he was from the leaders, he lost a lap to the pace car.
Tough break right there for J.R. Shepard here, as he is now going to try to see if he can get back on the lead lap with 1 lap to go. Yes, he will. He will be led by the pace car along with several other drivers here, but he's going to have a long list of cars to try to get around before catching up to the race leaders.
It loses him 1 net position on the racetrack. Here is the problem. He now gets to start behind several lap cars as they delay the green here, as half the field still is trying to catch up to this group. So, to reset your field, there are now 3 lead lap cars who will be up at the front of the field. Thunhorst and Morton, who are twinsies for tonight. Austin Belkey in third. Then the 8th place car, Ruben Altis, is on the outside of row 2. Mike Holloway, 9th place. Inside row 3, Kurt Smith. First car 1 lap down outside of that row. Adam Shane is currently on the inside of row 4. Then J.R. Shepard will get the start of the outside of that row. And due to the lucky dog positioning, it'll be Kenny Kibbe starting shotgun behind this pack as they'll regroup one more time before they restart with under 50 laps to go, Taylor.
It's going to be very interesting indeed, but a tough break, though, for Jeffrey Harden. He takes it behind the wall. His night is done here at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway as we go try to get this thing lined up and go back to green flag racing. It's going to be a 50-lap dash to the finish for your race leaders as we see the Forge Racing Chevrolets, the twinsies, Thunhorse and Morton, who are going to be on that front row. Let's see who will battle it out, and will we see a little bit of respect amongst teammates, or will we see these two fight to the bitter end here in these closing laps?
For those wondering, why do they have the same paint scheme? Longtime friends in the sim. They communicate with one another during these races. They also work together with the major series in the respective regions. So they do have that experience under the banner of Forge Racing. But it's Thunhorst in control of the field, the inside of the two Forge cars. Off and away, we're back to racing. 48 to go at the stripe in closing.
Good jump right there by Matthew Thunhorst in that number 8 as they rocket it off of turn number 2 down the back straightaway. There you'll see Morton trying to continue on. How about J.R. Shepard? He's a man on a mission trying to get through lap traffic to catch up to the top 3 as they come off of turn number 4 down the front straightaway here. As we'll watch on and see as he dives to the inside of Mike Holloway and continue to progress up through the field. Kenny Kibbe, also a man on a mission trying to work through lap traffic.
Kibbe is only passed by a couple of the cars after looking like he had the golden strategy. Able to take enough fuel to get to the stops, but a bit of contact. Mike Holloway hit by J.R. Shepard to the wall. Shane nearly hit him as well. Holloway up out of the group. Kenny Kibbe and company drive underneath. No caution, we stay green.
We are clean and green here, but the drivers are starting to get a little mean at the Nashville Fairgrounds as they work off of turn 4 down the front straightaway. There you see Adam Shane in that 65 trying to see if he can keep pace, to see if he can catch up to Ruben Altice for that 8th position. He has quite a ways to go, but he's going to put everything that he can as looks like another car. That's the 45 of Jason Menda who hits the wall off turn 2.
That was just behind these cars as Menda has a little bit of fender damage in turn. Brandon Proudfoot is the car right on behind him. Here's the onboard with the Jim Beaver Esports machine. And remember, Proudfoot is on a few lap older tires than much of the field now in turn because of that caution flag period. He is still several laps down, and this is for position.
He was able to get one of his laps back during that caution period, and now is 3 laps down instead of 4 laps down. He's going to try to get around Menda to be that first car 3 laps down and sets his sights to maybe get a chance of a top 10 if a caution were to come out late in the going as they come off of turn 4. Caution is out.
And it is Holloway who is the trigger this time in the 2 machine. We're under caution for the second time in this event. The field will be re-racked and stacked after Mike Holloway looped it around in 3 and 4 along the outside wall.
Well, as the old adage goes, Justin, cautions breed cautions. We went over just 145 laps of green flag racing. Now we're starting to get 2 cautions here in less than 20 laps. So we'll see what happens here in these next few stages. It's going to be 40 laps to go for your race leaders.
Kurt Smith will be the lucky dog this caution flag period, by the way, as a result of Mike Holloway's spin. Mike Holloway running on his own at the time of the caution flag. As you take a look, there was another car behind, reason for the trigger. As here's the drift, see the loop. By the time Ryan Seneca drives on by, he is the wrong way around the racetrack, and in turn, that's enough to trigger the caution flag.
It certainly is indeed a tough break for the 2 of Mike Holloway as he was looking to see if he can get a good finish here. He's currently still sits in 10th, but has to do a little bit of work later in the going in order to see if he can stay inside that top 10.
Keep in mind when it comes to Mike Holloway, he is 2 laps down. Menda and Proudfoot behind him are 3 laps down, so there isn't much of concern. Meanwhile, Matthew Thunhorst starts to play with a pace car. And in turn, starting to go off and on with the gas pedal here. Just trying to have a little fun, I think, here.
You have to do here. I mean, that's what we love about racing here at the short track community, is all about having fun here on iRacing, having a great time, great competition, and put on a little bit of a show here on the Virtual Grip Network as we are underway to try to see if we can get this race finished out. Lap 162 completed next time by, as the Forge Racing Chevrolets will try and see if they can come out on top. There's the Major Garage badge right there underneath as they continue to race on. Of course, the Major Series just did a great group opportunity with short track racing community involved highly in that series as well.
Indeed. Take a look at J.R. Shepard. This caution flag helps him and Kenny Kibbe the most, if anything, Taylor, because they were still marred in heavy traffic. Now, they'll be right on the tailpipes of the race leaders.
They certainly will, which will be very beneficial for them in catching up to the field and having a shot to battle for the race win here on these closing stages.
So how do you try and approach this now, especially if you're Kibby, knowing you had a strategy that could win? You were taking no tires. Your plan was to out time distance the other competitors on the racetrack with the pit delta. That's now gonna bust, and now you have to win by raw pace. What do you think the mindset's like, especially now for Kibby, knowing if it went green, there's a good chance we're talking to him in post-race by now?
It certainly is, but the thing is, it's now all about showing that balance as well, saving your equipment. We still have less than 40 laps to go. A lot can happen between now and then, and you can definitely use up your tires significantly if you're not careful, and that's what Kenny Keegan needs to try and do. Keep the pressure, but save his tires to the very end.
Never know what's going to happen. There have been some wild finishes in BRL competition, especially the past year and a half, 2 years. 36 to go this time. Thunhorst off and away, and a clean launch for the number 8 machine as he looks to put a bow on what's been a successful 2021 for him. He sees what he wants to see behind, battling hard for second. How about near 3 wide as Austin Belke hits the back end? Kenny Kibby trying to move him. Belke loses some time. Justin Morton able to get back to second as Kibby gets held up on the bottom.
Here comes J.R. Shepard on the outside as they work side by side through turns 1 and 2. Shepard washes up the racetrack. That's going to allow Kibby to get to the inside. Off of turn 2, Belke still battles. Shepard clatters off the barricade a little bit, but gains the 3rd position as they work through turns 3 and 4.
And Kenny Kibby loses a lot of time as a result of that. Justin Morton's already closed up nearly half a second or so back behind Thunhorst. Everyone else more than 4/10 back of the 9 machine. To follow along with Kibby, Nocturnal Gaming Machine. And this is where he's going to be truly tested. Can he find something different to get past these cars?
He's going to have to try different things indeed in order to make it work for him as we watch off of turn 2. They work down the back straightaway here. Great racing action all across. A little bit of contact down the back stretch.
Seen that in the grouping with Jason Menda and company. Trouble for Adam Shane in front of this group. Shane goes to the inside wall. Altice rides the wall. Proudfoot dodges. Unbelievable dodge by Proudfoot as Menda able to avoid as well.
No caution. We're going to stay clean and green now as they work off of turn 2 down the back straightaway. More contact a little further back behind Brandon Proudfoot as they still are side by side between these two as they battle for 11th.
And that's the key thing. It's for 11th position, 3 laps down, but they're fighting like it's for the race lead. Proudfoot still to the inside of Menda. Menda has the cleaner car for now out of this group. Also holding up the lucky dog from last caution, Kurt Smith, who has already used a fast repair. Todd Liston also in this group. He is the current driver in position for the lucky dog. If anything boils over amongst this group, he does not want to be there, especially because of that. Door-to-door contact, Menda gets clear, and Kurt Smith wants to get around at this point, you can tell.
He certainly does. He's going to try to put that pressure on both the two drivers in front of him. Kurt Smith sitting at 6th spot. He's now back on the lead lap. He wants to get in there and battle for a top 5 here in these closing stages as they work through on board here with Kurt Smith, the Indiana Club driver, trying to get around these 2 lap cars, and it is costing him valuable time here in the closing stages.
He is more than 4 seconds or so behind the top 5 at this point as he actually moves up the racetrack. Todd Liston takes advantage. Smith gets loose. Liston and Altice now go underneath the 6 car. This is now coming to 27 laps to go for Kurt Smith this time by. He needs a caution if he wants a chance for the win.
He certainly does, as Ruben Altice will look to the inside of Kurt Smith and continue to battle as they come off of turn 2 down the back straightaway as they work. Kurt Smith takes a peek to the inside of Altice, can't make it work. Here comes Mike Holloway now.
And Mike Holloway not for position in this grouping too. He is 2 laps down. Altice is a spot. Justin Morton, meanwhile, continues to hold on to second. He is 7/10 back of Matthew Thunhorst at the time being. J.R. Shepard, Austin Belke, Kenny Kibby, all of them are matching lap times. Just 0.3 of a second of fall off so far this run.
They certainly are matching lap times indeed and keeping on the pressure through the field. In fact, your top 5, a 19.35, a 19.36, a 19.37, a 19.38. Matthew Thunhorst, your race leader, a 19.35 last time by. Now he picks it up a notch and puts it over a 10th on Justin Morton last time around. Austin Belke, just the only driver to match the pace of Matthew Thunhorst.
Looked like Shepard wanted to go there too, Taylor. He poked his nose to the inside for a split second. Just couldn't get the run he was looking for and didn't fully commit to the dive with the door wide open.
That's one of the things. You cannot waste an opportunity like that. You have to make the move as soon as you see an opening and capitalize on the mistakes of these drivers ahead of you as he works through turn 3 and 4. Because if you make a mistake and let another driver get to your inside because you're not capitalizing, it could cost you dearly. As we're on board with Kenny Kibbe, the Michigan Club driver, trying to see if he can get around Austin Belke off of turn 2.
Still can't find the run quite yet, as Morton has become the cork in the bottle for this entire pack now. Last time by, Thunhorst nearly half a second quicker when it comes to the times or so, as Morton continues to lose nearly a full second now. To the back end was Powell and Thunhorst. Down to the 20 laps to finish things out. This time by, question is, will anyone be able to do anything to get to the 8?
They are trying every which way they can to catch up to your race leader, but it might be too little too late. Less than a second separates your top two as they work their way down into turn 3 and 4.
Just see how tight things are faring and how much Kenny Kibbe in turn is bobbling across with that wheel. A little harder charge, and this is what happened, by the way, that nearly sparked chaos just a few laps ago.
Jason Menda, Brandon Loudfoot battling for that position as we can now go back on board with Kenny Kibbe as he's trying to see if he can catch up to Austin Belke to get in that 4th position. J.R. Shepard in the podium spot, trying to see if he can get around Justin Morton for 2nd and chase down your race leader.
Thunhorst now has broken more than a second away, as you see from the left front tire of J.R. Shepard. Just continuing to ride, being patient here. No major aggressive moves on Justin Morton, coming up to 16 to go. This time by. And for Thunhorst, this would be huge for him this season, especially after being a championship contender for much of the campaign of the Grand National Series in particular, before missing the final 2 races, which in turn gave the opportunity for Shepard to beat Justin Morton for that title.
Certainly is indeed, as you're on board with J.R. Shepard, the Mid-South Club driver, trying to see if he can find that opening he needs to get around Justin Morton, but it might be not enough time here as we are closing in on 10 laps to go. 186 of the 200 laps completed. Down the back straightaway for the here we go. Kitty send it in, not close enough to make it work.
Just continuing to ride along as Adam Shane has had to come down to the pit lane due to an issue. 65 now in for service, which will put him out of contention for the rest of this race. Right behind him, though, battling starting to trigger up. Right behind J.R. Shepard. Austin Belke had a peek to the inside from Kenny Kibbe just a moment ago. Kibbe wasn't able to build up the run and get fully side by side with the 24 machine, though, down the back straightaway. Coming up to 12 to go this time by. Distance between Morton and Shepard, 2 car lengths.
It's still a battle for that second spot between those 4 drivers, as we're now seeing Kurt Smith now trying to work through lap traffic. There's Mike Holloway, the Plains Club driver in that Mobil 1 Ford, trying to see if he can work his way around through the field. He's going to try to see catching up to Ruben Altis to get a position ahead, moving him up to the 8th spot, but not able to stick it to the inside just yet.
Ruben Altis has had an intriguing night, to say the very least, racing his way into the show this evening. Now battling 2 laps down with significant back-end damage, with the final few laps coming into play. Coming up to 10 to go this time by. Holloway again clips the apron this time, not able to fully close the gap. Kurt Smith continues to stay bottled up behind. Kurt Smith has lost 10 seconds to the race leader after being the lucky dog last caution flag.
Let's see what they can do here as he's working his way up through the field. Kurt Smith just absolutely struggling right now in these closing stages as they work their way down into turn 3 and 4. He's going to take a higher line to see if he can make up some ground.
Thought about the peak, couldn't make the peak. In front of them, another position battle was forming as well. This is for 10th spot as well. 3 laps down. Menda and Proudfoot trying to fight for a top 10 finish in this event after having some bad luck in the case of Proudfoot, and for Menda just losing several laps throughout the portions of this race. But it's Proudfoot with the pace, Menda with the drift, Menda with the squeeze on back as they keep it side by side to the corner exit.
They're going to keep on battling here for that 10th spot as they go to the inside. Proudfoot gets the nose, but momentum is on Menda's side as they come off of turn 4. Proudfoot tries to squeeze him to get the spot, but Menda still keeps his nose in it.
Proudfoot is clear. Does he take the chance? Just about did as Menda scraped the wall. Menda keeps it to the quarter panel. Proudfoot now rips away the 10th position. What could have been when it comes to pace for him after his qualifying issues. Lead pack, meanwhile, getting ready for its final few laps. 5 to go this time by the stripe. Race lead has checked out by 1.5 seconds.
One of the biggest gaps here since we've had green flags and no green flag pit stops here for Matthew Thunhorse as he starts to pull away from the field. Continues to grow this gap, a drive that he should be proud of here in the closing stages. It's going to be 4, now 3 laps to go for your race leader.
Down to the final few steps of this race for Matthew Thunhorse. Since joining BRL competition, he has been dominated and has been a driver right on the precipice of the pace. He's won multiple times in several series, and now is just less than 3 laps away from the biggest win in this series for him.
Smooth and consistent is what Matthew Thunhorse has been all night long. He started on pole. He was leading. He has maintained a strong performance. Popsicle sticks up in the air for Bonnie the Flagman. 2 laps to go.
He continues to set some of the fastest lap times in the entire field. Right behind him, Hallway and Altis fighting for position. One of the final few battles on the track as the white flag will wave this time by. Mike Hallway takes away 8th. Final lap is underway from Nashville Fairground Speedway for Matthew Thunhorse. For Matthew Thunhorse, he's been dominant right from the get-go this evening for the Stone River Shootout. He'll make his way this time by through 3 and 4. Matthew Thunhorse wins the Stone River Shootout for 2021.
What a drive indeed for Matthew Thunhorse. Justin Mort will come home second, and J.R. Shepard rounds out your podium finishers here tonight. A strong drive by the Forge Racing Chevrolets here as they go out and celebrate this 1-2 finish.
Matthew Thunhorse becomes the 5th different winner in the history of this event in 6 years running, as Thunhorse puts on a dominating performance as he prepares for the Polish victory lap. It's something he's done for a lot of his big victories. Tonight remains that case for Matthew Thunhorse. So it's Matthew Thunhorse who comes away with a victory tonight in the 2021 edition of the Stone River Shootout. The final interval comes to be 1.5 seconds over Justin Morden. Let's take a look towards your finishing results for tonight's action. Again, it's Matthew Thunhorse who takes home the victory tonight over Justin Morden, with J.R. Shepard following closely behind in 3rd position. Austin Belke, Kenny Kibbe, and Kurt Smith round out the lead lap cars. Kurt Smith 13 seconds back. Todd Liston was the only car 1 lap down in the end in 7th. Mike Hallway fell to 2 laps down to 8th position of the checkered after battling with Roman Altis. The battle for 10th position was between Proudfoot and Menda. Proudfoot won that battle, Taylor, amongst the cars 3 laps down.
Jason Menda, we pointed out, will finish 11th, followed by Ryan Seneker in 12th position. Adam Shane will come home 13th, followed by Jeffrey Harden, the second car to be out of tonight's race in 14th. Lowell Jewell rounds out your 15-car field here tonight.
That's a look top to bottom at your running order for tonight's running of the Stone River Shootout, presented by Stone River Outfitters, a family-owned, full-service brick-and-mortar fly shop located in Amherst, New Hampshire, servicing the greater New England region and beyond. Committed to your complete satisfaction, our small but knowledgeable staff worked hard to not only stock the finest selection of top-quality fly fishing and fly tying products that the industry has to offer, but backs those goods with the highest levels of customer service, experience, insight, and most candid, most trustworthy advice available anywhere, period. Once again, to learn more about that organization and their company, along with their entire inventory, go to StoneRiverOutfitters.com. Tonight went the way of Matthew Thunhorst, coming away with the race victory in the Stone River Shootout. Matthew, first things first, congratulations. You become the 5th different winner in the history of this event in 6 years.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, still trying to catch my breath after that one.
Take your time. Take your time, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really intense race sitting there doing a 200 laps like this. So, it was a lot of fun. It was definitely challenging, though. I'll put it this way: I'm glad Lowell's Jason decides to make the races 100 laps and not 150 or 200 laps, because I know before that caution, my right rear was basically destroyed, and I was hanging on for dear life.
I was going to ask about that because the strategy portion of the race was very intriguing in that regard, because for the beginning of the race in particular, drivers were estimated to make it 55 to 60 laps tonight, as the iRacing default setup has about 8 gallons of fuel in the tank. How did that in turn impact how you approached your strategy tonight? Because we've seen a few different approaches in turn.
Yeah, just with the fact we had one set of tires, I definitely want to save mine for later in the race. I know they seem to plateau around the 6s, and then after the second stop, or about the time Kenny took it, I was eking into the 7s, so I knew tires weren't going to be big, but I knew if it was like if you had already run 100 laps at that point, and somebody had gotten fresh ones, you were pretty much towed. But Justin worked some numbers before the race, and we found out what we needed on fuel, and so I just decided to bite the bullet up front. And it was just generally because of the fact that fuel goes in really quick here, and tires seem to take an eternity compared to that. So it was just try to save the tires for late in the run, and then just make sure I was good to go on fuel. And when I saw Kenny out there 7 seconds, it was just trying to slowly chip into his lead, so at least I could make sure I could try to lap him or all that. So try to move him out of the race. And I know it's kind of frustrating because I almost got JR there, and then the caution came out. It's like, oh no. It's like, Justin, Austin, JR, and Kenny all got put right back in this race, and it's like, oh no, I had a chance to put them away and I didn't.
But in the end, caution able to cycle you to the race lead in turn, but you did not give up the rest of the way. Now, with this victory now in hand, what's your approach going to be like for the next season of BRL action coming up, especially knowing you're in contention for the Grand National Series title in particular before missing the final 2 races?
I think their approach is just going to be the exact same. Go out there and, continue to have fun, enjoy doing it with these guys, because, it's competitive to where I am pushed, and I have to bring my best, to try to get wins and podiums. But, it's just keep doing more of the same. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I hated that I had to leave the championship when I did last season, but, it's kind of one of those things. Family's important, and I want to spend time with them. So it's, now I get to put more time back towards BRL, and if we get the chance to win the championship, then I'll just give it everything I've got, and if not, then I'm gonna make sure I have a good time doing so.
Anyone you want to thank for joining your name into an illustrious list of race winners?
Yeah, I just want to thank Lowell and BRL as a league, for even putting this race on. Stone River Outfitters for coming on and sponsoring this, Gargamels for sponsoring the regular season stuff as well, and it's getting to hang out with Justin and Austin's a lot of fun too. Getting to shoot the breeze at them all as well during the race, and Just a shout out to the whole field in general. I think we put on a good race. I hope it was fun for you all to broadcast and for the viewers to watch. So, and then a personal shout out. I want to thank my parents. It's only because we decided to leave our vacation early and drive. Well, I had to drive 15 hours, but get up at 1:30 this morning to even make this race. So, made it pretty exciting. But yeah, and you all as well at Virtual Grip Network for bringing us to the fans and showcasing this. So, thanks to everybody involved.
Congratulations once again, Matthew, on the victory tonight.
Thank you very much, Justin.
That's Matthew Thunhorst. He takes home the race victory tonight by 1.5 seconds over Justin Morton. Justin Morton came home in the second position right behind his pal, Justin Morton. Now gets a chance to stand on by with Taylor Burris. Taylor?
Here with Justin Morton. Justin, a great performance for you coming home in second place. Explain to the viewers about how your race went for you as you were battling it out with the likes of J.R. Shepard and many other strong competitors, and Belkey as well as Kenny Kibbe in those closing stages.
Yeah, the start of even before the race, I kind of botched my qualifying, so I started a little bit farther back than I was hoping. That kind of pushed me to save my tires more at the start, which I think really benefited me on that, especially that really long run. Yeah, that was a long race. Trying to remember it all.
It certainly is. I mean, the strategy involved with trying to conserve your tires as well as make sure you have enough fuel to get to the end, the time as well as the knowing of the correct making calls for this race, how critical was that?
Yeah, it was really critical. I'm guessing what happened with, I haven't got to look. It looked like JR might have just taken a full tank of fuel, which is why I gained 5 seconds on him in the pits. I was really surprised when I cycled out right behind him. Yeah, strategy was pretty big. Try to save your tires as long as possible, change wise. And, that caution kind of set everything in place for everybody to take tires. So that kind of made things a little bit easier.
Well, before we let you go, Justin, anyone you would like to say thank you to?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my team, Toll Amherst Racing and Forge Racing. I decided to run Forge paint tonight, just shake some things up. Great job by Brian on our team for doing that awesome paint. Gargamel's Kitchen for sponsoring the league, and Stone Rivers Outfitter for sponsoring this race. Really appreciate it. Lowell for running this fantastic league, and look forward to being back next season. And thank you guys for doing the broadcasting.
It's Justin Morton coming home in second place as Justin Prince catches up with J.R. Shepard.
JR, first things first, third place run tonight. Came into this evening as the only multi-time winner in the field. First things first on that. Talk us through your opinion on how things fared out from your perspective tonight, though, especially with tire wear that came into play.
Yeah, tire wear definitely came into play. The biggest thing for me is I got myself way behind, made a stupid mistake on the pit stops, and I don't know what I could have done different, but had a physical brake issue coming into my pit box, and basically my pedals moved completely in a different direction than what I needed them to, and slid through the pit box. So I should have never been back in fourth or fifth trying to battle through there, and I just killed the tires trying to be aggressive and make up ground, and ultimately I lost some more spots. So yeah, it's a virtual race, but you can have physical real life things happen that affect you, and tonight was just my night for that.
Indeed, and explains why there was that mistake in the pit boxes during the first pit stop sequence. Now, you've been in this event many times. It's talked about you've won twice in the history of the Stone River Shootout. Talk us through what that feeling is like to take part in this type of event, knowing it's much longer than all the other BRL races throughout the year, and it's also in turn celebrating the birthday of BRL competition, with this year marking the 27th year.
Yeah, it's extremely cool to get to do an event like this, and like you said, it's to celebrate BRL's anniversary. So it's cool that they've been around for that long through all the different types of sim racing that's been around through the years. So it's really cool to do that. The event's definitely different, and every year Lowell tries to make it different. So we don't do the same thing every year, and it keeps everybody on their toes. A lot of guys go into it and put practice and a lot of strategy into it, and wished I had the time to do that. I think I could have gained a little bit if I hadn't had the pit stop mistake due to that. But yeah, it's just didn't have the time to do that. Came out here to have fun, and I enjoyed it tonight. It's really different than what we get to do.
Now, curious on this, Mark, we talked a little bit about this after your championship, your approach now knowing there's going to be a lot of pressure in turn for the final few races in turn next season of 2021's campaigns before the calendar year shifts over next season across BRL competitions.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've got a lot of guys that are capable of winning races and challenging for the championship. Matt's at the top of that list, and then you got Justin. Kenny's returned. Austin has become an extremely solid driver to challenge for the podium each and every week. So there's just a lot of drivers that are going to be up there challenging for it each week, and you know, it's going to be tough. You got to be consistent. Got to try to find a way to avoid bad luck. So be tough for sure. Hopefully we can run the whole season, but you know, things come up in your personal life, so we'll just see how it goes.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Yeah, just absolutely thanks to BRL. You know, happy anniversary to them. 27 years is pretty amazing, and thanks to Stone River for everything that they've done. They've sponsored this event multiple times. Stone River Outfitters has been great for us, so really appreciate what they do. I also want to thank White River for last night's race. Didn't get to congratulate them on a race and sponsoring the event, so appreciate what they did last night. And yeah, just we'll keep chugging at it. Hopefully we can continue to have fun and keep doing this.
Congratulations on the run tonight, JR.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Once again, that's JR Shepard coming home with the third place run this evening. Like to thank him, Justin Morton, and Matthew Thunhorst for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on Virtual Grip Network. So Taylor, I turn to you. Your final thoughts on how things fared tonight as strategy came into play, the pace definitely came into play, but in turn, the fastest driver won.
It certainly was. Matthew Thunhorst played the ultimate strategy to pull off the victory. A couple of drivers tried to make it work, but unfortunately the cautions did not fall their way. Actually, the cautions did fall their way, of course, but unfortunately not for the way they wanted. But a lot of great racing action across the field, and it's always a pleasure to come out here to Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway for great short track action.
And an interesting statistic to keep in mind as well, with the White River Shootout taking place last night, that was the first ever running of that event, Taylor. Justin Morton became the first driver to ever finish second in both of the BRL birthday celebration events with the Stone River Shootout and the White River Shootout. Congratulations to Justin Morton on joining that illustrious club as well. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's exciting action from the virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Congratulations to Matthew Thunhorst. He's your winner of the Stone River Shootout here on Virtual Grip Network. This has been a production of Skidder Creek Motorsports Group and the Virtual Grip Network.